Hello and welcome. My name's Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about sublimation tips, and I'm going to have 5 tips that you may or may not know in this video and can incorporate into your sublimation crafting. And then after you're done watching this video, my friend Corey George over at Hey Let's Make Stuff has 5 additional sublimation tips that you don't want to miss. So I will link to her video in the description below this one. And if you are watching on the premiere with us and chatting along with us, her video will premiere right after mine. So you want to be sure to head over there and see her 5 tips. So we are doing this together to celebrate our launch of Sublimation Camp 2023, which is a camp all about sublimation. It will run May 4th through 6th. And right now you can get a free ticket. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Sublimation Camp at the end of this video. But right now let's dig into those 5 tips. So these aren't really in any particular order. They aren't really my top tips. They're just 5 tips that you might not know. So my first one is that sublimation paper doesn't only come in like 8.5 by 11 and 8.5 by 14 inch sizes. It also comes smaller. Why would you need a smaller sublimation paper size? Well, you might, for instance, want to print mug designs on a smaller piece of sublimation paper. So let's take a look at printing on smaller sublimation paper and why you would want to. So here's an example of a mug. So this is a mug wrap, and this size mug, if I was to print it on regular 8.5 by 11 inch paper, it would have to print like this. It is too big to print 2 per page, so I am wasting tons of paper. Now if I buy the mug size paper, so this paper I just happen to have is a 5.5 inch by 9.5 inch. I do think they make different paper sizes. It comes in this size directly out of the package, and what you'll need to do is add it to your printer and change your page size. So first let's take a look at changing that page size. To print on a different size paper, first of all, it's going to depend on the printer you're using. So with my Sawgrass printer, I can choose any paper size. I can go to manage paper sizes and add any paper size that I want. And then when I go to print something, all I have to do is pick that paper size that I added and go ahead and print to it. It shows in the print preview, shows me what it's going to look like, and it makes it very simple. On the other hand, if I'm using something like an Epson EcoTank, when I'm printing, I would go to my printer preferences and I would choose my page size, and I would go to user defined if I had a really odd paper size. Then you can put whatever you want in the blocks on user defined and print. I will say that it makes it a little more difficult to get the correct size out of the printer, and you may have to play with some of these properties in order to get it correct for every paper size that you do. But it is definitely possible. Now that you've changed your page size, you'll need to actually add this paper to your printer. So every printer operates similarly. You would open your paper tray, remove the paper that's in there, and then add this specialty paper. Your printer is going to have guides, most definitely on the sides, and maybe front to back as well. Those side-to-side guides will adjust. Here on this Sawgrass, I just press down a little green lever on one of the sides, move the side in and out, and both the sides move in and out at the same time. Basically, you want any paper that you print to be in the center of your printer feed. And then on this printer tray, I actually do have a guide in the back as well, and I adjusted that to the page size as well. So you just want your page to kind of fit snugly in there so it won't move when you're printing. So after I made those adjustments, on my computer, on my printer, I was able, this is with my Sawgrass, I was able to print on that 5.5 by 9.5 inch wide paper. This is the exact same size as this version. Can you see how much less paper that I get to use for my mugs? So this is definitely a cost savings and great for the environment. So if you do lots of mugs, I would definitely suggest keeping mug size sublimation paper on hand. It will save you in the long run. Now I did want to try this with my Epson EcoTank as well, because this one was with my Sawgrass, and I was able to print on this 5.5 by 9.5 inch paper with my Epson EcoTank. So it is definitely possible. The EcoTank is a little trickier. You got to set a few more settings. You got to play with it to get the size right. But I think once you get those settings right, you are going to love printing on the smaller paper size and saving paper every time you print. Now, this might not only be for mugs. Perhaps you are into making small can koozies. You only make a couple at a time. You could use it for that as well. So think of other ways you could use smaller paper sizes and start incorporating those into your sublimation crafting. So I seriously love that tip for saving paper and getting the most out of my dollars for sublimation, and that's always important. Speaking of getting the most out of your dollars, my next tip is to always make sure that the protective coating is removed from your sublimation blank. So a lot of blanks, metal blanks are typical for this. Some of your hardboard blanks will have a protective coating that they put on them when they ship. So it's like a piece of plastic that covers it, and you're intended to remove that before you sublimate. So I'm just going to tell you that I'm the queen of not removing the protective coating before sublimating. Several times I have not utilized this tip. So let's not waste sublimation blanks. I don't want you to waste sublimation blanks. Always check, like use the fingernail on the edge of your blank. Make sure that there's not some kind of protective film over the sublimation blank before you actually start sublimating. So how do you tell if there is a protective film? So first of all, if you do sublimate and your paper sticks or it looks absolutely horrible, then you might just have a protective film on there. So after I sublimate and do this completely on accident, then I kind of check the edge. Yes, in fact, there is a protective film. Then I go on, that sublimation blank's wasted. I take another one and actually remove the protective film. So all you really have to do is peel that protective film back before you sublimate, and then everything will be fine. But this is like, I need to stick this on a Post-it note and stick it where I do my sublimating, right on my heat press or something. Be sure the protective film has been removed, because I am the person that forgets to do it almost every single time. So don't be like me. And my next tip is also about saving money. So when you do sublimation, you probably need to do quite a bit of tests, like, are your printer settings correct? Is the size of your print correct? Are the skin tones okay in this picture I'm printing of my family? I would like to check that before I sublimate on these very expensive sublimation blanks. How do you do that? The absolute best way to do that is to buy cheap 100% polyester fabric from a place like Joann's. Just has to be 100% polyester, white fabric on a roll in the fabric department. Very, very inexpensive. And when you have that, you can test all this sublimation stuff. You can test your colors. You can sublimate color charts. You can test images, pictures, whatever you would like to test on this before you actually sublimate on a blank. This will save you tons of money down the road when you don't ruin those sublimation blanks and you get your colors right on the polyester fabric before you start trying to sublimate those tumblers, mugs, and those more expensive sublimation blanks. Speaking of that testing, so I wanted to talk a little bit about time and temperature. Definitely run some tests. So when you get a sublimation blank, you probably look where you purchased the blank, hopefully, and you find a time and a temperature that they recommend for sublimating onto this blank. Now, may or may not work with your printer setup, right? So your printer, your heat press, all of that factors in, and you might not get the look you want. So when you sublimate, black is actually the last thing to sublimate. All your other colors sublimate first. So if your black in a print looks green or has a greenish tint, that means it has not sublimated completely, or it's undercooked, so it needs more time or it needs more temperature. If your black looks brown or has a brown tinge to it, then it's burnt. It's over sublimated. Too much time, too much temperature. So yes, you can put too much time and too much temperature into that sublimation. So it is a great way to test on that 100% polyester fabric, test those times and temperatures, but every single blank is going to be different, and this is a way to tell that. Now, in addition to this tip, now this is not number 5, I'm going to give this is an additional tip. Since black sublimates last, and I don't want to ruin, say I messed up this 20-ounce tumbler, save it as a test tumbler, print black on your sublimation printer, just straight black. You can cut black strips from that sheet, and you could sublimate those black strips right over that ruined tumbler. You can use that to test your time and temperature without using an additional tumbler. So black will go over all those other colors that's already on your tumbler, and you can kind of dial in that time and temperature without using additional blanks. So another money saving tip for you that kind of goes in addition to that green is undercooked, brown is overcooked rule. And finally, my number 5 tip is to print on the correct side of your sublimation paper. If you don't know, there's a right and a wrong side to print on your sublimation paper. Typically, if you're having trouble with your sublimation ink drying, maybe getting roller marks in it if you're using an Epson printer, those rollers are dragging through wet ink. That means that ink is not drying completely on your paper as it should as it's going through your printer. And it may be because you're not printing on the correct side of your sublimation paper. So, which side is the correct side? Let's take a look at a few brands and see how to tell. Sometimes it's easy to tell which side of the paper is correct and sometimes it's not. This A-Sub brand, for example, actually has A-Sub written on the back. So you know that that is the back. However, a lot of these brands with the watermark on the back, people have trouble with that watermark actually transferring to their surface. So you may or may not have luck with these types of brands. This pack of Hippo paper, if you look at it, it is like most sublimation papers. So they're basically bright white on one side and sort of a creamy matte white on the other side. It can be very hard to tell. I suggest putting it under a bright light, flipping over the corner so you can really compare the sides. Look at this side versus this side. Which side looks more creamy or looks more matte to you? Which side looks brighter white to you? The bright white side is what you want to print on in these cases. Now, some other sublimation papers you might find have a color on the back, so they might be slightly pink. But a lot of them are just kind of an off-white or a cream color on the back and bright white on the front. In addition to that tip, another bonus tip for you is to make sure that whatever paper you're using is for the printer you're using. So if you're using a paper that says it is for Sawgrass and Ricoh printers, and you are putting it in an Epson EcoTank printer, it may not absorb the ink correctly and you may have issues. So make sure, if you have one of those Epson EcoTank converted printers, that the sublimation paper you're using actually says it is for those printers right on the label. So always make sure of that, as well as print on the correct side, and hopefully that will lead to sublimation success. So now those are my 5 tips. Now, I talked a little bit about Sublimation Camp at the beginning of this video. I wanted to talk a little bit more. So Sublimation Camp is May 4th through 6th, and you can get a free pass right now. It's sublimationcamp.com. I'll put that web address right here. You can go ahead and sign up and grab that free ticket. So what do you get in Sublimation Camp? You get 27 never before seen videos from me, as well as other what we call camp counselors or speakers. Everything from the basics of sublimation to more advanced topics like sublimating on glass, sublimating on wood, that DTF hack y'all have been asking me about. It's going to be in Sublimation Camp. You don't want to miss it. We have a great lineup of speakers as well as sponsors. So a huge, crazy amount of giveaways, like over $4,000 worth of giveaways, along with free sublimation files, cheat sheets, all kinds of things. Like, you do not want to miss this event. So sign up now, grab that free ticket, and join us May 4th through 6th. I would love to see you there. And these videos are exclusive to Sublimation Camp right now, so this is the only way you're gonna get to watch them. And trust me when I say you don't wanna miss this content. So now you have my 5 tips, and my co-hostess for Sublimation Camp is Corey George with Hey Let's Make Stuff. She is joining me with 5 additional tips for sublimation, and I am going to link to her video in the description below this video. So if you're on computer, scroll down, click show more. If you're on mobile, click the arrow to expand the description, or swipe up on the video depending on how you're watching. You'll find a list of links. I'll drop Sublimation Camp there, I'll drop Corey's video. Go ahead and head there and watch her 5 tips. If you are chatting with us in the premiere of this video on YouTube, her video will premiere right after this. So head there, check out her video, and get her 5 tips, because trust me, I know what they are, and you don't want to miss them. So if you have any questions about the 5 tips that I have talked about, feel free to drop those in the comment section below. If you liked this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.